Okay, we're about to hear from our next speaker. I don't mind if you sort of hubbub underneath me, but I'm sure our next speaker would appreciate a bit of peace and quiet. So thank you very much for that. Our next speaker is the Transport for New South Wales Secretary Rob Sharp. He leads a team of about 29,000 people, and they're delivering about $72 billion in infrastructure over the next 4 years, which is more than $2 million an hour. Every hour, 24/7, so no pressure there then. So to give us an update on the Future Transport Strategy 2056, prioritising projects and plans post-COVID, we're going to hear very shortly from the Transport for New South Wales Secretary Rob Sharp. But before Rob, a video.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. It is exciting, and I am going to talk a bit about the future because there's a lot happening out west. We're going to play our part, and I just want to give you a little journey in terms of where transport's at, some of the objectives that we're going to be running with, and talk to some of the things we're already doing on the ground here. But initially, I just want to acknowledge that we are meeting on the Inaugural land today, and I pay my respect to elders past and present. What a year. I feel like I'm still living the COVID aftermath, and it's nice to be back in a forum with a lot of faces. Still feels a bit alien though, doesn't it? And when I look back at the last 20 months, it really has drawn out some interesting issues for transport. But it is exciting. We are delivering $72 billion worth of infrastructure in the next 4 years. Massive program. And it will leave a legacy. It'll really make a difference to the lives of people in New South Wales. Coming into transport, one of the things I found really interesting was that in the commercial world, it's about the dollar. You know, how much am I making for the shareholders? It's the profitability. And transport has a purpose. And it's great to be part of an organisation where you talk purpose. And the purpose that we have is around making New South Wales a place to work, live and to visit. And we do that by connecting people, not just people but communities. And as the video showed, we're about reliable, safe transport. Millions of people get transported around New South Wales every single day. And whilst we saw mobility drop to historic lows on our transport network, and that includes the roads over the last 20 months, there have been some amazing efforts put in by the transport team, and I did want to just thank the team, but also thank industry who actually kept the projects going during COVID, and that actually sustained somewhere around 130,000 jobs directly and indirectly. So a great shout out to the teams for keeping New South Wales moving. We have seen people coming back now onto transport, and I would like to think that as the vaccination rates hit the all-time highs, we see confidence coming back in, we'll see more people coming back onto public transport. And there's no doubt that COVID is going to have a legacy. And that is weighing on my mind at the moment in terms of how many people are going to come back, how many people are working from home and aren't coming into the CBDs, how many people are travelling and staying in the West, but they're travelling more within the West. Those changes are happening and they will be relatively permanent. There's not just a quick switch here and it's just going to go back to pre-19. So for us, it's pretty exciting because what customers want is flexibility. And that's something that we're looking at in our strategies. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But it means that we're going to have to provide more connection opportunities. That could be more walking, cycling ways. It could be facilitating more on-demand services. Things such as flexible parking, having a single parking spot for work now when you're only there for 2 days a week is probably not that smart. So how do we actually make it easier to use the infrastructure we already have? To do that, it's all about data. And we are looking at the latest trends. What are people telling us that their new lifestyle is going to be? And also we've had a number of natural disasters over the last 2 years, from bushfires to floods. And I was up the north coast of New South Wales at the beginning of this year. Absolutely, the infrastructure got smashed. There was 25 landslides on the Oxley Highway. We're talking major impacts to infrastructure. There's a time now to reflect on all of the lessons out of COVID and what that new norm's going to look like, and to enable us to tackle some of the issues that you're very familiar with, congestion and crowding on trains, congested roads, all the issues that were driving this major infrastructure program that the government's rolling out. And we need to then, as transport, work out what role we play in the solutions to address those. For those of you who have read the document, and I don't know how many have, and I won't ask for a show of hands, but there's a 40-year plan, and Peter just put his hand up. There's a 40-year plan, the Future Transport Strategy document. It was actually released in 2018. The world's changed so much, we've actually pulled forward the review of that. And we're consulting on it at the moment, and it'll come out for public consumption early next calendar year. And this is to reflect on the changes that we're seeing and to get broader input into what does transport do in this new world. The 40-year vision seems a long time away, so we do have a 10-year blueprint, which sort of brings it a little bit more to life. And then there's a 3-year plan that we use internally, and this is actually about step changes and areas of focus that we need to elevate to actually bring to life the outcomes that we're looking at. It is a really good document, and I think there's some wonderful initiatives that we're envisaging to deliver over the coming decades. Right now, however, we are delivering. The Western Sydney region in particular is experiencing a lot of growth, and I asked for some statistics, and I must admit I was quite surprised. In the next 20 years, 2 million people currently live here. It'll grow to 3 million people, and by 2031, over half of Sydney's population will be in the West. So we're talking significant demographic change and significant growth in this space. Transport's going to be pretty critical to underpin that and support that, and it's one of the reasons that the New South Wales Government and Transport is delivering a major pipeline of initiatives, and I'll talk a little bit about these. These initiatives are absolutely game-changing. They are very visible. In fact, we've got over 100 major projects underway right now. The extent of it's quite large, and it's no secret as well that this infrastructure spend is being driven by all the governments, the federal as well, to actually get the economy going. It really is something that stimulates the economy, delivers jobs and growth. We'll be talking after this in a panel session around, importantly, what's it actually mean for the future? How does this infrastructure help the West? And Camilla Drover will be on the panel from Transport, and she'll continue to talk to that topic. Congestion has been a big one on the roads. The West Connects has made a real difference, and I know most of you here would have been on it, with the M8 and the new M4 tunnels. We are still delivering on that. The final stages have been delivered, so this is the M4, M5 link tunnel and the Rozelle interchange, on track for 2023. In fact, the breakthrough of the tunnel for the M4, M5, I was lucky enough to get down there, and when that occurred, And it's an amazing piece of infrastructure. Quite astounding engineering work going on down there. State and Commonwealth governments are investing as well through the Western Sydney Infrastructure Plan, and this includes the Northern Road between Narellan and Penrith and the M12 motorways. The new M12 is really important because it connects the freeway network system out to the new airport, and there's about 2,400 jobs being created off the back of that initiative alone. The motorway will provide not only capacity and reduce congestion, travel times to an airport are really critical, and this piece of infrastructure helps underpin the investments there. What's interesting as well is just the sheer amount of freight that moves around Western Sydney, and a lot of this infrastructure is actually geared as well to facilitating freight movements, and particularly with the airport, I believe there's a good agribusiness opportunity for the airport, and the road systems are critical for underpinning that. The Northern Road upgrade, this will provide a main arterial corridor as well for the southwest growth out to the parklands. There's about 2,100 jobs on that project as well. Whilst we're talking roads, there's a fund or a program called the Western Sydney Growth Roads Fund, and I'm going to rattle off some names. Some of these I haven't been to, some I have, but they'll probably be very familiar to you. So we've got projects on Mulgola Road, state and federally funded, Horsley Drive M7 motorway to Cow Pasture Road, Memorial Avenue Old Windsor Road out to Windsor Road, Appin Road improvements, federally funded, Spring Farm Parkway Stage 1, and then Memory Road M4 motorway to Erskine Park Road. They're all major choke points, they're serious infrastructure upgrades, and they are in that program. So it'd be good to see those delivered. In October, we hit a big construction milestone on the Sydney Metro City southwest. In the city under Martin Place, the massive caverns that are there for the Metro have been delivered 6 months ahead of plan. That connects Chatswood out to at the Bankstown. The Sydney Metro West project alone will double the rail capacity between Parramatta and the CBD. So there's 3 rail lines through there that many of you will know has been extremely congested. This doubles the capacity and really addresses that particular issue. 10,000 direct jobs and 70,000 indirect jobs on that Metro project. Then there's the Sydney Metro Western Sydney Airport line. So that's the main spine that goes out to the Aerotropolis and the new airport. Underpins a lot of job opportunities, the business park, education services. There's so much going on out there. So these roads are required. I was fortunate enough to visit the site out there with the new airport getting built and the new Bradfield Aerotropolis site. It really is rapidly progressing. It's really visible. All the infrastructure's in, massive amounts of earthworks. For those of you who haven't been out there, it really is underway at pace. I was really surprised. 14,000 jobs, 250 apprentices associated with these. So the infrastructure is really delivering jobs on the ground. Parramatta Light Rail, I know there's been a lot of interest in that one as well. Pleased to say it is progressing well, about 5,000 jobs. We've got about 85% of the line and the rail now laid. For those of you who enjoy Eat Street, that's now open and we've got the rail through there. And so post-COVID-19 it was able to reopen, which was great because it was closed for quite a while. This project achieved the Infrastructure Sustainability Council of Australia leading rating for design. That's the highest industry benchmark. So it's pleasing to see that this infrastructure is having a sustainable element to it and we're actually delivering on that space and being recognised for it. It's actually an enabler for a lot of things, and we are leveraging this infrastructure to drive some support into areas that you may not anticipate. So for example, 5% of the overall project workforce was allocated to disadvantaged, disabled and underrepresented groups. 20% of the trades were apprentices, and 8% of the overall workforce when they joined were 25 years or under. So we're really supporting skills and bringing in broader workforce, leveraging these big infrastructure initiatives. So a much bigger flow on to the community than just a physical asset. I keep getting asked about Parramatta Light Rail 2, even though we haven't delivered one yet. There's 50 million been allocated in the budget for all the geotech work, the planning and preparing the business cases. So we're preparing that. This is the rail line that will go from Parramatta down to this location here. If stage 2 gets a tick, 18,000 jobs, and it would help underpin 18,000 additional residences between Parramatta and the peninsula. So these are enabling infrastructure projects which help underpin that strategy of 30 minutes by transport to any city centre. And we're continuing in our high-level strategies to have that benchmark. So it's not just about a railway line or a road. End of the day, that joins communities, and we're trying to create places or space around infrastructure so it has a broader community benefit. And there's quite a few examples happening out here in Western Sydney, and the Sydney Metro is probably the latest one, where we've worked across the neighbourhoods and with a lot of partners to create vibrant places around these new metro stations. DPI, Blacktown City Council, Landcom, and quite a few community consultations have taken place around Tullawong, and that's an example of a collaborative approach to how we're delivering a broader space around these areas. Special opportunity out at the new airport though, because it's a greenfield with not much out there. So we're pretty excited about what might be able to be done there. It gets a bit harder in inner city areas where you already have infrastructure in place. So I talked about the future. One of the things that definitely underpins the future is technology. I'm pretty excited about technology. I can talk forever about it. But it is important because the life cycle of assets is important. It's a big investment. And for us, that $70 billion, we don't want to just do things the way we always did them. We want to work with people, we want to partner. I would describe transport as an integrator these days. We work with partners, we bring the expertise in to deliver on infrastructure. And technology is an important part. I mentioned the behavioural changes that we're seeing. We're looking at data analytics, using artificial intelligence to track what is actually happening across our networks in real time, and we believe this automation will enable smarter transport corridors, smarter connections between the various transport modes. Metro is a good example, driverless, has no guards, fully automated, and you could look at that and say, wow, this technology is great, but we haven't even scratched the surface with what's possible in this space. So moving forward, I really do want to be looking at predictive capabilities. So better marrying the services we're putting out there in the roads with the underlying demand and doing that in much more real time. And to do that, we need systems and technology. An example is during COVID, we were required to reduce our capacity so we could still get essential workers around, but reduce it to a level that disincentivised mobility for obvious reasons. So those two were quite challenging. And in the end, we introduced dynamic scheduling for the first time ever. And we were able to actually look at our live TV feeds with artificial intelligence, looking at where the crowding was occurring, and then increase the capacity in those specific locations. Really worked well. We had to throw a lot of manual resources at it to do it. I'd love to operationalise that with tech and actually deliver a much more dynamic solution for when people are travelling. And those patterns are changing quite significantly. So for us, you'll see us investing in world-leading technologies. I've mentioned data analytics. We already use artificial intelligence quite regularly. And the aim for me is to improve the customer experience and the connections, transport connections that we're bringing. Quantum computing is our latest endeavour. And this is actually looking at the bleeding edge technology to deliver real-time information. And this is actually to solve network problems in real time. For example, recalculating timetables, routes, traffic reports in real time based on weather conditions and what we're seeing out on the road network. The aim here is just smoother, easier, reliable travel. It sounds really simple. Quantum computing isn't. And we're setting up a global centre, world first, at the Quantum facility at Tech Central. We're also working with Liverpool City Council on digital smart curbs. There's a pilot underway out here, and we're working in partnership with Western Parkland City Councils as well. And this is actually sharing multimodal data and looking at how do we better communicate what infrastructure is already there and how to actually access it easily. Sustainability is another element of what we need to do as part of our purpose. We're building a lot of infrastructure, roads. Transport generates 20% of the CO2 emissions. So we've got a big task to pull those emissions down. And next week we'll be launching our Inaugural Transport Sustainability Report. It's a warts and all look at what we're doing well, what we're not, but importantly paints the picture of what's possible. So keep your eyes open for that. You'll find it an interesting read. The New South Wales government has a target of reducing that CO2 by 50% by 2030, so less than 10 years, and we've got to pull down, transport's got to pull down 10% of those emissions. So it's a pretty big challenge. We're up for it, and we have been looking at how we do that. So for the metro operations, they're already net zero. They actually run off a solar facility. Heavy rail is now net zero as of today. We had targeted 2025, but all the trains, depots, everything you see that's heavy rail, net zero as of today. The key thing for us in direct control is the 8,000 diesel buses that rattle around, and we are looking at converting those into electric buses, which the customer feedback from the trials has been stellar. They're really quiet, they're not pumping out the diesel as they move around, and the customer ride is really good. So we're liaising with industry. It's a big step change. There's infrastructure required, and we're working with industry to come up with that strategy with business cases targeted for next year. The government's also looked at electric cars, electric vehicles, and in the budget you'll be very familiar with the rebates, the incentives that were put in place, and for transport the commitment to roll out charging infrastructure. Range anxiety apparently is the word that everyone is concerned about, and that infrastructure is being rolled out in conjunction with the NRMA. We're also looking whole of government to replace all the car fleet, so fully electric by 2030 as well. So look, just to close, as you can see, a lot of ambitious plans, huge infrastructure build, leveraging technology, looking at what our customers and what everyone in the West is wanting out of infrastructure over the next period post-COVID. And we are happy to be partnering with a large number of players. Quite a few are here, and it's great to be able to work with professionals and deliver infrastructure for the communities. There are a lot of opportunities out here, and in particular around the airport, the freight opportunities and the growth that is being developed out there. So it's pretty exciting to be part of that. We do want to make a difference. We want to collaborate, and there's quite a few transport people here for the rest of the day, so please feel free to grab them, chew their ear. A few people have already come up to me with some great ideas this morning. We're open for business and we're happy to work. Enjoy the day.